Hi, this is Ryan Lohner, and I am coming to you on the day that my new recap of Heavy Metal was posted on the Agony booth. And my main reason for doing this film is that it really ticked me off that it's really the big example of adult-oriented animation that's come out of America so far. And it's just a completely awful film that is just a nonstop orgy of color and sound and breasts and violence. And that's it. There's no more to it than that. Why can we not have animation in America that tells good, mature, adult-oriented stories, just like any live-action film that tells such a story you could care to think of? Like, why can't we have an anim- animated version of Citizen Kane or Casablanca? There's no reason to do it except the personal prejudices of the audience and the people behind the movies because of that audience prejudice. And that led me into another area in the forums, which was thankfully cleaned up in short order by a great moderator, Lost Leader, who reminded us all that it was off topic, which is that I made a statement in the recap that Alan Moore was one of the best writers and most acclaimed writers in recent history. And one forum member said that he laughed at that line and said maybe in comic books. And my response to that is basically, yes, that's what I meant. He's a great comic book writer. And he writes great stories that are deep and thought-provoking, and you can see new things in them every time you reread them. And that's really another problem that's come along, especially in America, which is that comic books are another art form or storytelling medium, whatever term you want to use, that has largely been relegated to telling just cheap and childish stories for absolutely no reason. You can tell any kind of story you want to in either an animated film medium or animated TV medium, any kind of animation, or a comic book if you want to. The only thing stopping you is the fear that people won't read it because they think that those things are just kiddie stuff. Now, we do have some people in America who thankfully don't feel this way. Probably the most prominent is Brad Bird, the director of The Incredibles and The Iron Giant and Ratatouille. But for the most part, this is a real problem that I see in America, and I really think it's time that people here realize that you don't have to confine yourself to the kind of stories you want to tell in any medium. Like, imagine I read Eragon or Twilight, and then after that declared that they were so terrible that therefore all novels must be terrible. It sounds ridiculous, it is ridiculous, and yet that's exactly the same reasoning that these people deriding comic books are using. There was some really insane and terrible material to come out of the Silver Age, or even some comics nowadays, if you see this kind of stuff that, say, Rob Liefeld is up to. And they use that to judge the entire medium. And that is just not a valid statement. That makes no sense on the surface of what you're saying. Like, you open something by, like, to use the obvious example, Alan Moore, something like Watchmen or V for Vendetta or From Hell. And those stories are, as I said, just as deserving of the title classic as any great book is. Like, on the level of The Lord of the Rings, or just something more worthy of respect that, if you prefer, say something by Herman Melville or Jane Austen. Any of the great classic writers. Alan Moore certainly deserves to be put up with them, as does any other great comic writer or animated film writer or animated television writer. I just wanted to give my opinion of this because it is a topic that I take very seriously ever since I became aware of it just a few years ago, really. And I've since become a very big fan of the rare, mature, adult-oriented, deep stories that can be told in this medium that have come out of this country, as well as from other countries, most notably Japan, with several anime series or manga series, that probably the best of those being the works of Naoki Urasawa, who is an incredible writer whose stories would be regarded as some of the greatest ever made if over here if he had not decided to make his medium the comic book, or manga as it's called in Japan. Well, that's really the point I wanted to make. I've probably rambled on too long about this stuff, but please think about it, because it is a real issue today, and the sooner people realize that, the better. You're really denying yourself some great stories if you decide to just offhand not read or watch any kind of art form just because you have not. I mean, there are probably bad examples of any art form, even going further back before movies and television. There are bad plays, bad statues, bad paintings, bad tapestries. Even back to the time of the Epic of Gilgamesh, there was probably something back then that people just hated, and decided to luckily raise up Gilgamesh as an example of what a good story is, so that we have the storytelling art form today. I don't know for sure that happened, obviously, but it seems very plausible that it did. At least I think so. So please, if you have been denying yourself these things, just open your mind to try out something new, and you'll probably thank me when you're done. That's all. I'll see you next time with whatever I decide to do.